Welcome back to the deep dive. So you've sent us this really incredible stack of sources. It's dense, it's fascinating, and it lays out a strategic blueprint for what's being called a Muslim NATO.
It's a huge proposal, a massive integrated defense alliance.
Right, spanning continents. And for this deep dive, we're going to bypass some of the usual topics, the weaponry, the member lists, and we're going straight to what the sources call the core architectural innovation.
That's right, because that's really the heart of it all. If you think of the alliance as a machine, we're basically looking at the engine room, the central operating system.
And that is this concept of a dual headquarters system.
A structure that the sources say is unlike any other major defense pact in modern history. It's
Right.
rooted in two great capitals, Islamabad and Riyadh.
Okay, so let's just jump right in and unpack this. The blueprint, it's very specific. It calls this the most powerful and unique innovation of the entire project.
It does. It even says it's a model never been attempted in Western alliances.
So our mission today is pretty surgical. We need to understand the why, the strategic necessity behind this split. And then how are these two cities, Islamabad and Riyadh, actually engineered to function together? The sources use this phrase, one heart and one brain.
And that's a great metaphor for it. The foundational concept is, well, it's brilliant in its simplicity, really. This isn't about redundancy. It's not having two HQs just for the sake of it.
It's a strategic necessity.
It is. It's driven by the very unique requirements of the Muslim world. So Islamabad is tasked with providing the military muscle, the technical professionalism, the strategic shield.
The brain.
The brain. And Riyadh is responsible for generating the spiritual legitimacy, the political unity, and the moral authority.
The heart.
Exactly. And the argument is that without either one of those components, the entire structure, the whole alliance, it just collapses. It lacks either credibility on one side or actual capability on the other.
Okay, that sets the stage perfectly. Two cities, two very distinct but complementary roles, and one overarching mission of defense and unity. So let's start with that fundamental strategic question, the one Section 1 really addresses. Why two? Why does this organization need two headquarters when, pretty much every other major alliance from NATO to ASEAN, they all manage with just one?
The answer really lies in understanding the sheer multi-layered complexity that this alliance is designed to manage.
It's not just a straightforward military pact.
Not at all. A conventional alliance usually focuses on one or two primary goals, right? Say, collective defense against a geopolitical rival or maybe economic integration.
Sure.
The sources make it crystal clear that this proposed Muslim alliance has to deal with challenges that are military, geographic, financial, political, and crucially sacred, all at the same time.
And a single HQ just couldn't handle that kind of pressure.
The friction would be immense. A single HQ, the sources argue, simply cannot contain that kind of friction without breaking.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds on that. Can we detail the specific, unique requirements that force this separation?
Yeah.
What are the actual pressures that would just overwhelm a single command center?
Certainly. So first, you have to consider the geography and the sheer diversity of threats.
Right.
The sources highlight that the alliance needs to deal with intensely diverse threats spread across a truly vast area. I mean, you're talking about everything from border security issues in Central Asia to maritime threats in the Arabian Sea.
And hybrid warfare in the Levant, internal destabilization in Africa. It's a huge spectrum.
It is. And trying to coordinate high-speed tactical responses to all of these completely different theaters from one single physical location, it just creates an unacceptable strategic lag. The response times would be too slow.
And then, on top of that already complex military matrix, you overlay this element of sacred responsibility.
And that's the game changer. This is the non-conventional element that other alliances just don't have to deal with.
Right.
The alliance has to simultaneously manage complex global defense coordination and uphold its primary sacred responsibilities, which are tied to the protection of the holiest sites.
That sounds like the ultimate operational and political friction point.
It absolutely is. I mean, just imagine for a second. If a single command center were running high-stakes military operations, and that could potentially include nuclear escalation protocols.
Which we'll get to.
Yes. While at the same time being responsible for the security, the logistics, and the moral governance that comes with the two holy mosques, the risk of mission compromise or a catastrophic political error just becomes immense.
The optics alone would be devastating. I mean, trying to fuse the cold, hard calculation of deterrence, which, often relies on the threat of overwhelming force, with the sanctity and moral purity required for managing holy sites and addressing the global ummah.
It creates a cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
a kind of strategic schizophrenia. And the sources found that insurmountable for a single unified HQ.
And beyond that, what else?
Well, there's the issue of multi-regional integration. The alliance needs to work across that vast geography, which means it needs centers of gravity in different political and cultural spheres just to get buy-in from everyone.
You feel representative.
Exactly. And finally, and this is maybe the most strategic point of all, it has to address the billion-strong emotional identity of the population. This alliance must resonate as morally legitimate. It can't just be seen as another geopolitical bloc or worse, some kind of mercenary endeavor.
So if they tried to put everything, global defense, nuclear deterrence, sacred site protection, and pan-Islamic political legitimacy under one roof,
Yeah.
the blueprint is basically saying it would either suffer paralysis or just be perpetually fractured from within.
It would inevitably privilege one function over the other. It's human nature. If the military component dominates, the alliance loses its moral core. It becomes just another bloc and fails its mandate to the Muslim world.
And the other way around.
If the spiritual component dominates the day-to-day command and control, it risks becoming strategically ineffective, politically slow, unresponsive.
So the only solution was a definitive division.
A strategic division of supreme responsibilities, its specialization at the absolute highest level.
Let's nail that division down then. HQ1 in Islamabad.
Islamabad is explicitly designated as the operational and defensive brain. It manages all strategic, military, nuclear, and intelligence functions. It's the home of professional governance of military science.
And HQ2 in Riyadh.
Riyadh is the moral and diplomatic heart. It's designated for sacred sites protection, achieving that crucial political unity, and maintaining global legitimacy for the alliance's actions.
The source material is very blunt about this, isn't it? It basically says that fusing the risk-calculating world of defense and nuclear deterrence with the absolute imperative of spiritual legitimacy means these functions should be physically and organizationally separate.
It raises a really important question of trust, you know? How do you convince 2 billion people across dozens of nations and different sects that the ultimate military power of this alliance, which includes its nuclear shield, is being managed with both ruthless professional efficacy and profound moral accountability?
And the answer the blueprint gives is this separation.
It's the only way. You ensure that the professional governance and the strategic secrecy that are absolutely required in Islamabad are subject to and balanced by the moral authority and public accountability that is vested in Riyadh.
That sets the stage perfectly for us to get into the details. So Section 2, Headquarters 1 Islamabad, the military brain. When we look at Pakistan's qualifications for this role, what specific assets did the blueprint point to? Why was it the definitive choice?
The designation of Pakistan wasn't arbitrary at all. It was based on a very clear-eyed inventory of unique, non-replicable assets within the Muslim world.
And number one on that list has to be the nuclear capability.
Without a doubt. The first and most pivotal reason is that Pakistan is the only Muslim nuclear power. That capability is the ultimate deterrent shield for the entire alliance. Its management, its doctrine, its infrastructure, all of it must be centralized and, frankly, non-contestable.
And the sources really highlight that the idea of extending this deterrence, of offering a nuclear shield to non-nuclear member states, that's entirely predicated on Pakistan's command infrastructure being at the center of it all.
Exactly. It just lends a strategic gravitas to the alliance that is immediate and recognized globally. But beyond the deterrent, you have to look at the industrial infrastructure.
The military-industrial complex.
Right. Pakistan possesses the strongest Muslim military-industrial complex, and that is absolutely fundamental for the alliance's long-term sustainment. We're talking about everything from maintenance to standardization of parts to establishing resilient supply chains that are independent of adversarial powers.
You can't have a credible defense alliance if you're dependent on your rivals for spare parts.
You absolutely cannot. And then operationally, there's intelligence. Intelligence capacity is just paramount in modern defense.
And here they point to the ISI.
They do. They house the leading intelligence service, the ISI, which provides an established, deep-seated, and globally experienced core. It's the foundation upon which the alliance's entire collaborative intelligence structure can be built.
You need a mature, existing infrastructure to launch something this complex. You can't just build it from scratch.
You really can't. And then there's geography. Just look at a map. Pakistan sits as this critical connector. It links Central Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East.
It's a pivot point.
A crucial pivot point. This positioning allows the command center to coordinate operations and threats from incredibly diverse theaters, from the Gulf all the way to the Himalayas, far more effectively than a single center buried deep in the Middle East could.
And the final point this sources note is about reputation and an existing framework. It's not just theoretical.
Not at all. There's its global reputation for discipline and professionalism in its armed forces. That's a necessary qualification if you're going to lead a multinational defense pact. And critically, this partnership isn't just an idea on paper.
They're already working together.
They're already operating the SMDA, the Saudi-Pakistan Shared Military Defense Agreement, with Saudi Arabia. That means the concept of shared command and deep cooperation between these two key players is already a proven bilateral framework.
So Islamabad is just the logical choice to scale that framework up into a full alliance command.
Exactly. The trust and the operational templates are already there.
It's clear then that Islamabad provides the necessary technical and strategic capability. So let's move to the operational roles, the really detailed mechanics. The blueprint says Islamabad functions as the military brain through a very specialized breakdown of 7 specific directorates. We really need to analyze the implications of each one of these.
Right. And the structure begins at the absolute top, the Supreme Allied Military Command, or SAMC. This is the highest military authority, the ultimate operational directorate for the entire alliance. You can think of it as the ultimate military oversight committee. It takes its strategic direction from the joint leadership, but it's responsible for all execution.
So all trip deployments, all major exercises, the overall defensive posture of the entire alliance.
All of it falls under SAMC.
So what's the difference between this structure and, say, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander Europe, SACEUR?
Well, SAMC is designed to be less personalized. It's more institutionalized. There's a much heavier emphasis on consensus among the Joint Chiefs, rather than the singular, very powerful command that's vested in a SACEUR.
Why that difference?
The sources suggest it's a structural safeguard. It's to ensure that while the execution of military strategy is centralized and fast, the strategic vision itself remains collective. It's designed to prevent any single general or any single nation from hijacking the alliance's military force for its own agenda.
That's really important structural safeguard. Okay, now let's move to the most sensitive function of all, the nuclear shield.
That falls under the Nuclear Consultation Council. This is where the strategic stakes are, well, they're the highest they can be. This council controls the doctrine for extended deterrence, it manages escalation scenarios, and it's responsible for nuclear safety and security.
For the non-nuclear member states, this council is everything. It's the tangible representation of that shield.
It is. It's the ultimate security guarantee.
So what deep structural protocols does this council need to implement to make sure every member state has confidence in it? Seems like trust would be a huge issue.
Oh, a massive issue. And the sources emphasize what they call consultative transparency. It means non-nuclear members have to have formalized, guaranteed pathways for consultation during a crisis.
You need a seat at the table, even if they don't have a button to push.
Precisely. The council has to establish clear, verifiable tripwires and escalation metrics. It's about building a common language of deterrence. It's about ensuring that, in a major crisis, the alliance speaks with one unified voice, even when it's talking about the ultimate weapon.
Without this explicit structure in Islamabad, the nuclear shield would just be Pakistan's alone. It wouldn't belong to the alliance.
That's the key. This council is the mechanism that collectivizes the deterrent.
Okay, next up is the Joint Chiefs Military Committee. This sounds like the engine room of day-to-day collaboration.
It absolutely is. This committee is the formalized structure where the generals, the chiefs of staff from all the member states, Army, Navy, and Air Force, they all report directly to this single headquarters in Islamabad.
And that gets rid of a lot of bureaucratic friction.
It eliminates the friction and the latency that plagues so many loosely integrated coalitions. It ensures immediate cross-border tactical coordination and allows for the rapid deployment of resources because everyone is working from the same shared strategic frameworks.
Okay, so that's command.
Yeah.
Let's move to information flow. The Intelligence Fusion Center. Now, given the diversity of the member states, you've got established democracies, monarchies, highly centralized states. Fusing intelligence from all of them must be just fraught with political and security challenges.
That is the core difficulty that this center is designed to manage. It's not just about pooling data. That's the easy part. It's about managing different security cultures.
Different levels of trust, historical rivalries.
All of it. The Fusion Center is tasked with creating a central core for all collaborative Muslim intelligence efforts. This means establishing unified standards for how data is shared, what the threat assessment nomenclature is, operational security protocols. And that's incredibly difficult when you're integrating security services with vastly different mandates and, yes, historical rivalries.
So they have to overcome these really deep-seated national instincts toward secrecy.
Exactly. The success of this entire center rests on creating a culture of trust that's robust enough to overcome those national secrets, especially when you're talking about internal destabilization threats, which can be very sensitive for certain regimes to share.
And the goal is for this Fusion Center to be the single authoritative body for unified threat assessments across all member states.
Which is crucial, absolutely crucial for preempting modern diffuse threats like state-sponsored terrorism or external destabilization efforts.
Now, in the modern battle space, defense isn't just about borders anymore. It extends into the digital and orbital realms.
Which brings us to the fifth directorate, the Cyber and Space Command. This directorate is critical because the alliance depends entirely on secure communication.
Especially between the two HQs.
Especially, it's responsible for protecting the alliance's digital borders, its critical infrastructure, think energy grids, financial networks, transportation systems, and very importantly, alliance satellites.
A coordinated defense alliance needs its own eyes and ears in space.
It needs unified surveillance and communication assets, and this command is there to ensure those assets, especially that critical data link between Islamabad and Riyadh, are impenetrable.
This sounds like it requires a massive investment in redundancy and cutting-edge technology.
Substantial investment, yes, and also integrated policy. The sources really emphasize the need for unified cyber protocols because a vulnerability in one member state's infrastructure is an immediate weakness for the entire alliance.
A single weak link breaks the whole chain.
Precisely. And Islamabad is the hub responsible for setting and enforcing those defensive digital standards.
So we've covered immediate command and control. What about the long game? The vision casting and contingency planning.
That falls to the sixth pillar, the Strategic Planning Directorate. This is the long-term thinking component of the brain. It's their job to draft the war plans for various contingencies.
The what-if scenario.
All the what-ifs. They conduct extensive unbiased threat assessments and they develop multi-year contingency frameworks for everything from a major conventional conflict to, say, an environmental crisis that might impact member stability. They're looking 3, 5, 10 years down the road to ensure the alliance's posture is dynamic, not just reactive.
So this directorate has the crucial job of translating the political will that comes from Riyadh into executable military plans in Islamabad.
That's a perfect way to put it. They are the essential bridge between the high-level political objectives and the boots-on-the-ground reality.
And finally, the seventh pillar. This is the one that ensures that all those plans can actually be executed seamlessly across all these different national forces.
And this might be the hardest job of all. This is the Training and Interoperability Authority. This directorate handles the truly daunting task of standardization.
Getting everyone on the same page.
Exactly. They ensure there are uniform standards across all member nations for weapons systems, communication protocols, rank structures, training methodologies, tactical procedures. Interoperability is the hallmark of any successful alliance, and this is where the really hard work of turning disparate national armies into a single, cohesive fighting force actually happens.
So we're talking about the nitty-gritty details, like ensuring a tanker from one nation can fuel a jet at a base in another.
That's a great example. Or that two different national armies are using the same encrypted radio frequencies and the same command nomenclature in a battle. It's that meticulous detail that determines success or failure in a crisis.
And Islamabad is designated to enforce this uniformity.
To maintain the professional standard required for complex, multi-front operations. When you look at all 7 pillars together, it's undeniable. Islamabad is the strategic, professional, and technical brain of this whole operation.
That level of technical detail really does make Islamabad's role crystal clear.
Okay,
so now let's pivot. Let's transition to Section 3. Headquarters 2 in Riyadh. This is the spiritual heart, the center of legitimacy. What makes Saudi Arabia the necessary, the indispensable choice to provide the moral and political foundation for this immense alliance?
Well, Riyadh's role is predicated entirely on its unique status within the Muslim world. It's not about military might. The foundation of its selection is its designation as the custodian of the 2 holy mosques.
Makkah and Medina.
Makkah and Medina. This provides an immediate, undeniable, and transcendent religious legitimacy that cuts across all major sects and nations. No other capital can come close to that.
And this is more than just symbolic, right? It's practical. It creates a kind of unity. It makes Saudi Arabia the unquestioned symbol of unity for 2 billion Muslims.
It does, and that allows the alliance to bypass many of the historical, political, and sectarian fault lines that have, frankly, sabotaged pretty much every other attempt at pan-Islamic cooperation in the past.
So that legitimacy is its single greatest asset.
It is. But beyond the religious symbolism, Saudi Arabia is an essential regional power. It serves as the primary central diplomatic heavyweight in the Middle East. It has deep ties and established political channels across the entire region.
And then there's the money.
Then there's the money. It's identified as the financial backbone of many Muslim states, which means its participation is essential for the economic viability and sustainability of the alliance itself.
So if you aggregate all those factors, the sacred responsibility, the diplomatic weight, the financial leverage, Riyadh really functions as the necessary stabilizing force in Muslim geopolitics.
That's the idea. It's essential for minimizing that internal friction and providing the moral anchor that keeps the military side, the brain in Islamabad, accountable.
So if Islamabad handles the shield of deterrence and defense, Riyadh handles the soul and the unity required to deploy that shield legitimately.
Exactly. And we can dive into the 6 pillars that define Riyadh's moral and political roles, starting with the most tangible expression of its unique status.
The Sacred Sites Protection Command. So how is this more complex than just simple security? It sounds straightforward.
It's intensely complex because it requires international coordination that crosses very sensitive political boundaries. Of course, it manages the security for Makkah and Medina, but its mandate extends further. It also coordinates protection efforts for other critical Islamic heritage sites.
Most notably, Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Most notably, Al-Aqsa. And this requires complex, high-stakes liaison with governments like Jordan and Palestine. It means integrating their security needs into the larger alliance structure without compromising their national sovereignty.
So this command isn't just a defense unit, it's an active diplomatic mechanism that's operating in some of the most sensitive political arenas in the world.
It is. Its job is to ensure the spiritual core of the alliance is secure and universally respected, which in turn reinforces the moral mandate of the alliance itself. Any threat to these sites is an existential threat to the alliance's legitimacy, which makes this command utterly pivotal.
Okay, so the second pillar seems to be designed to tackle the chronic issue that has plagued Muslim unity for centuries: internal disagreement.
And that's the mandate of the Political Unity Secretariat. This is, you could argue, the most sensitive political directorate in the entire alliance. It is dedicated to the essential daily task of preventing internal divisions and friction between the member states.
It's a constant mediation body.
A constant, proactive diplomatic mediator. Its job is to identify and resolve disputes before they can compromise the collective defense posture.
So what are the specific mechanisms the sources outlined for this secretariat? How does it actively prevent that friction?
The focus is on establishing robust mediation protocols and on leveraging the moral authority of Riyadh to depoliticize disputes. For example, if 2 member states have a border dispute or a trade issue, this secretariat is designed to intervene early. It offers a neutral, high-level arbitration panel.
The goal being to keep national interests from derailing the collective security.
Exactly, to ensure that national interests, while always respected, do not derail the collective security interests of the whole alliance.
Okay, so the Political Unity Secretariat deals with internal disputes. The third pillar, the Crisis Diplomacy Center. That one looks outward.
The Diplomacy Center is the face of the alliance to the rest of the world. It handles external conflict de-escalation, it manages peacekeeping missions within member states or in neighboring regions, and it conducts high-level negotiations with non-member states, international bodies, or even adversarial powers.
So if Islamabad's Strategic Planning Directorate is drafting the military contingency plans,
then Riyadh's Diplomacy Center is executing the strategies to ensure those plans remain hypothetical.
this center seems absolutely vital for managing regional perceptions, especially in conflicts where the alliance might be perceived as being aggressive.
Absolutely. Their role is to ensure that any action taken by the alliance is preceded and followed by a clear diplomatic rationale. They are the de-escalation mechanism, ensuring that military strength is always a means of deterrence, not a default operational path.
The fourth pillar brings in the geopolitical reality of financial power, the Economic Security Council.
Because in today's world, defense is inextricably linked to economic resilience. You can't separate them. And this council manages two absolutely critical functions. First is sanctions resistance. That means coordinating member states to mitigate the effects of economic coercion and sanctions imposed by external actors. And second is critical energy coordination, managing global oil and gas supply chains to stabilize energy markets, which are crucial for member state security and also provide leverage on the international stage.
So it sounds like they're trying to build a kind of internal economic resilience, protecting the alliance from financial vulnerability or weaponized trade policies.
They are building economic walls to complement the military shield. This council is tasked with financial crisis management, with ensuring member states have sufficient strategic reserves and diversified trade routes to withstand global economic shocks.
Okay, now let's delve into what might be the most crucial conceptual link between Riyadh and Islamabad. The fifth pillar, the Religious Legal Advisory Council. This seems to be the pillar that sets the moral constraints on the military brain.
This is where the blueprint truly innovates. This council is designed to establish the ethical framework for the entire alliance, and its primary function is to define and enforce Sharia-compliant rules of engagement and alliance ethics.
And this is not just a symbolic role.
Not at all. It's an active oversight mechanism.
So give us a concrete example. What kind of practical military decision would this council actually govern? What's an ethical dilemma they would be responsible for resolving?
Okay, a great example would be the use of advanced military technology like drone warfare or high-precision munitions. The council would issue advisory opinions on the acceptable parameters for targeting.
So defining the limits.
Specifically defining the theological and the legal limits on what constitutes a proportional response, on mitigating collateral damage, and on defining legitimate military targets versus civilian infrastructure. For instance, before NMC in Islamabad could approve a strike in a dense urban environment, this legal council in Riyadh ensures the methodology adheres to the strictest possible ethical constraints,
Making the operation morally defensible to the global Muslim population.
That's the goal. It means every major military strategy that gets developed in Islamabad is subject to a moral vetting process governed in Riyadh. It maintains moral legitimacy alongside operational effectiveness.
It's a powerful check and balance.
An institutionalized one. It ensures that strategic necessity never overrides moral imperative.
And finally, the sixth pillar in Riyadh, the Strategic Communication Directorate.
This directorate controls the narrative. They are responsible for shaping information for the 2 billion Muslims the alliance represents, but also for communicating the alliance's legitimacy and its strategic intent to the outside world.
So in an age of information warfare, this is crucial.
It's a proactive role, not just a reactive press office. It ensures a consistent, unified message, preventing adversarial powers from exploiting information vacuums or sowing internal discord. They are the gatekeepers of the alliance's reputation and its moral standing.
Which is vital for maintaining that internal unity the political unity secretariat works so hard to secure.
The two work hand in hand.
Okay, so we have meticulously detailed the 7 technical functions of Islamabad and the 6 political and moral functions of Riyadh. This leads us to the absolutely crucial high-stakes question of Section 4. How do 2 geographically and functionally separated command centers actually operate as a single unified command? The sheer physical distance, over 1,500 miles, that has to introduce a tremendous amount of risk.
That is the ultimate vulnerability, the one the entire blueprint has to mitigate. The whole system fails if there is any operational friction or any communication lag, and for that reason, the integration mechanisms are designed to be equally sophisticated.
So what safeguards are in place to ensure this seamless fusion, especially with that geographical separation?
The first, and it's completely non-negotiable, is the real-time data link. This has to be a 247 high-security, heavily encrypted communication infrastructure that links the strategic brain in Islamabad with the spiritual heart in Riyadh.
And it has to be redundant.
Absolutely redundant. We're likely talking about dedicated satellite networks and hardened, buried terrestrial fiber optics. The point is to ensure that strategic intelligence flows instantly to the moral authority and that political guidance flows instantly back.
Why 247 immediacy? I mean, why can't high-level political decisions wait an hour or two?
Because in modern conflict, the detection to response cycles are measured in minutes, sometimes seconds, especially when you're talking about a cyber attack or a ballistic missile threat. A strategic decision made in Islamabad about a response posture, it has to be ratified or morally sanctioned by the political leadership in Riyadh almost simultaneously.
Any latency creates a command gap.
A gap that an adversary could and would exploit. Latency is simply unacceptable.
So technology bridges the distance. How do you bridge the power dynamics? How is political parity and shared leadership ensured to maintain that foundational balance we talked about?
Through a single governing body, the Joint Decision-Making Council, or JDMC.
The GDMC.
This is the ultimate governing body of the entire alliance. And the sources are extremely specific about its composition. The JDMC must have equal representation from HQ Islamabad, so primarily military and intelligence leadership, and HQ Riyadh, which is the political, financial, and religious leadership.
And that structural equality is the key.
It ensures that neither the military-industrial wing nor the political-financial wing can unilaterally dominate the alliance's high-level strategy. It forces consensus.
But equal representation can lead to deadlock, and deadlock is deadly in a crisis. How does the blueprint account for the speed that's required during an actual emergency?
By predefining a clear, non-ambiguous crisis chain of command, the blueprint recognizes that true emergencies require immediate, centralized authority. So the nature of the threat itself determines which HQ takes primary operational leadership.
Okay, let's analyze that. Let's walk through the predefined leadership hierarchy in a few specific scenarios.
Yeah.
Scenario 1, a threat against the foundational mandate.
So if sacred sites are directly threatened, Riyadh leads. It's that simple. Because that threat directly engages the entire raison d'etre of the alliance's moral authority. The response, while it would absolutely utilize Islamabad's military assets, is politically and morally managed by the Sacred Sites Protection Command, relying on Riyadh's immediate diplomatic authority to guide the response.
Okay. Scenario 2, a threat to security and borders. The strategic shield is under pressure.
In that case, if borders are violated or nuclear threats emerge, Islamabad leads. This is a purely strategic and military scenario. Decisions regarding deterrence posture, counter-escalation, immediate operational defense, they all fall under the Supreme Allied Military Command and the Nuclear Consultation Council. In that moment, Islamabad's expertise and speed are paramount.
And what about the complex modern threats, the ones that don't fit neatly into either category? Like a massive coordinated disinformation campaign that's coupled with small-scale state-sponsored proxy attacks.
A hybrid warfare scenario.
Correct.
In situations involving hybrid warfare, operations immediately shift to a joint HQ command. These are threats that require both a high-speed strategic response and immediate narrative control and political coordination.
So it requires both HQs working in perfect sync.
In real time. It would necessitate constant collaboration between Islamabad's Intelligence Fusion Center and Riyadh's Strategic Communication Directorate. The command structure becomes bipolar, requiring simultaneous authorization from both political and military leadership.
Beyond the leadership structure, what about shared operational tools? What's required to unify these two distinct geographical entities on a practical level?
They required a completely unified operational network. This means integrated intelligence streams that flow seamlessly into both HQs. It means shared early warning radar systems that monitor the entire strategic perimeter of the alliance, and unified satellite networks for communication and surveillance.
So the alliance has to perceive its threat environment as one single entity, regardless of who is ultimately leading the response at that moment.
Exactly. The data has to be universal and instantaneous for both command centers.
And to formalize this split in roles while still maintaining unity, the reporting structure must also be dual, is that right?
Yes, through a principle the sources call dual reporting. This is what maintains clear lines of authority without creating confusion on the ground. Military units and intelligence agencies, they report operationally up the chain to Islamabad.
The political side.
Political units, diplomatic missions, the economic councils, the religious legal bodies, they all report to Riyadh. This separation ensures professional governance of the military function alongside the necessary spiritual and political accountability.
Okay, this is where it gets really high level and analytical. Section 5, historical context. How does this dual HQ model stack up against the precedents, particularly NATO, which is always used as the comparative benchmark?
Well, the comparison to NATO is essential because the source material explicitly frames the dual HQ model as a deliberate solution to what it sees as NATO's systemic weaknesses.
And NATO, of course, has a single headquarters in Brussels. It's a very Western-centric organization.
Fundamentally so.
So what are the specific structural weaknesses of that single HQ model that this Muslim alliance blueprint is trying to solve?
First and foremost, NATO struggles significantly with legitimacy in Muslim regions. Because its command structure is so dominated by Western non-Muslim powers, its interventions, even when they're peacekeeping missions, are often perceived as external interference, not as legitimate internal stabilization efforts.
A single HQ model can't easily generate that required moral license to operate in this context.
It really can. And secondly, you have the internal divisions that so often plague NATO.
Right.
The single HQ model, which is often dominated by the sheer military and financial weight of the United States, frequently leads to internal friction. You see strategic misalignment between the U.S. and key European allies, and sometimes alienation among the smaller members. The power distribution in NATO is inherently unbalanced. So how does the dual HQ model claim to overcome those twin issues? External legitimacy and internal power imbalance at the same time.
By its very design, it immediately solves the external legitimacy problem by anchoring its moral authority in Riyadh, which automatically respects Muslim spiritual identity. This gives the alliance a moral mandate in these regions that NATO simply cannot replicate.
And internally?
Internally, it's a structural guarantee against domination by any one power. The division actively balances power between Arab and non-Arab states. You have Islamabad, a major non-Arab nuclear power managing the military shield, and you have Riyadh, the center of the Arab world and its financial stability, managing the political soul.
So by forcing this strategic codependence, the blueprint prevents any single state, no matter how big its military or its economy, from completely dictating alliance policy.
That is the core strategic genius of the model. The blueprint explicitly states that the dual HQ structure is designed to prevent any one state from dominating completely. It maintains the critical equilibrium that is required for the alliance's survival. It combines Pakistan's nuclear strength and professional military with Saudi Arabia's sacred legitimacy and financial depth.
And in doing so, the alliance achieves the necessary trifecta: balance plus unity plus strength.
We've established the complexity and the rationale for this structure, but it didn't just materialize out of thin air. The sources say it's predicated on a profound, pre-existing bilateral agreement that really served as the proof of concept.
That's the SMDA, the September 2025 Pakistan-Saudi Shared Military Defense Agreement. This was not a standard arms deal or a military exercise agreement. It was a deep political and strategic commitment that, the sources argue, made the dual HQ structure not just possible, but inevitable.
What was it about the SMDA that made it such an essential foundation?
The agreement established unprecedented levels of military integration between the two. It involved far more than just shared defense protocols. It established concepts of shared sovereignty when it came to defense matters. It stipulated a mechanism for a shared military response to specific predefined threats.
So, for example, it set up a framework where Pakistani personnel could operate certain Saudi defense systems under a joint command.
And vice versa. It was a truly deep integration. The two capitals that would eventually become the core of the alliance, the brain and the heart, had already demonstrated they could trust each other enough to integrate their defense assets and even compromise on certain aspects of military sovereignty for the greater good.
So the SMDA was the operational dress rehearsal.
It absolutely was. It proved that deep shared governance and military cooperation between a nuclear-capable non-Arab state and the spiritual center of the Arab world was not just politically feasible, but operationally sound.
This has been an incredibly deep analysis of this core architecture. We've really seen how the strategic decision to split command is designed to ensure the alliance is both technically professional in its military response and, at the same time, universally legitimate in its moral conduct.
The division of labor is just meticulous. You have Islamabad, with its 7 military pillars, SAMC, nuclear consultation, joint chiefs, intelligence fusion, cyber planning, and interoperability. That provides the shield, the sheer organizational expertise and the ultimate deterrent. And then you have Riyadh with its 6 political and moral pillars: sacred sites command, political unity, crisis diplomacy, economic security, the religious legal advisory, and strategic communication. That provides the soul, the cohesion, and the moral license to act.
The ultimate synthesis of the two is intended to be self-reinforcing.
Exactly. The source material's ultimate claim is, well, it's very powerful. It says that together, functioning through the JDMC and that crisis chain of command, the operational brain and the moral heart are designed to form the most powerful and resilient Muslim defense structure established in 1,400 years.
Capable of managing both existential external threats and deep internal political friction.
That's the claim.
So, as we conclude this deep dive, let's just return to that central high-stakes tension that really defines this whole system. We talked about the Religious Legal Advisory Council in Riyadh, which sets the Sharia-compliant rules of engagement. We talked about the Nuclear Consultation Council in Islamabad, which manages the ultimate strategic necessity of nuclear deterrence.
It forces the alliance to exist on a razor's edge. Nuclear deterrence, by its very nature, relies on the threat of absolute devastating force. And that, by definition, challenges conventional moral and legal frameworks that govern warfare.
So we'll leave you, our listener, with this provocative thought to consider. Given this structural tension, this explicit division of responsibilities, how might the alliance successfully balance the strategic necessity, the sheer, almost limitless destructive potential of nuclear deterrence managed in Islamabad, with the moral constraints, the ethical limitations, and the requirements for proportionality that are established by the Religious Legal Advisory Council in Riyadh during a moment of profound existential crisis?
That balance between absolute power and absolute morality is the key mechanism the alliance must successfully operate to survive.